About 2 months ago, I got a call from Dan, out of the blue. Hi, I'm thinking of running for Attorney General. I want to come meet voters in your area, and I was really excited to have the opportunity to, we could all put this together for him. I want to thank Chris Brueggemann, our events coordinator, who had the contact. I'm not going to say much, but I think what we all know is very important is that as Republicans we band together to get a good race and a good candidate against Maura Healy, who has gone out of her way to make our lives hard as citizens of Massachusetts. So I'm thrilled Dan's running. I'm excited to introduce him, and I'm going to turn it over to him. Welcome, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, Christina, Lucas, for having me. Thanks for everyone coming, all the town committees, the representative from the town committees. I'm really grateful for you coming and doing the meet and greet, especially on an evening when my favorite sports team of all time is playing.
They're all playing.
I know.
Except for the Celtics.
Well, I kept it broad, so I was like, I haven't checked the Sox score. I don't want to be bummed out.
You don't want to.
All right, so just to give you a little introduction, a brief introduction about me. I'm a South Shore guy, south of Boston. I grew up in Weymouth, in a small town called Carver. My dad is a cranberry grower down in Carver, and it's the cranberry area in southeastern Massachusetts. So I'm from a blue collar background, and I learned a lot of values growing up. Hard work, appreciate your family, appreciate your neighbor. And then really just having good values, and that's something that has always been with me. It's at the center of my heart and soul. I always like to look at myself in the mirror. I can look at myself in the mirror. I can sleep at night. That's important to me. My conscience is important to me. And worldly things, they're all well and good, but I need to feel good about what I do, and that's something that's guided me through my life. I'm 45 years old. Some people say I look like I'm a little younger than that, but whatever the case, 45, I'm very seasoned, or maybe older, it doesn't matter. I applied the values that I learned, growing up. I put myself through undergraduate finance and education. I also put myself through law school. Honored to have graduated from Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. I served on the law review, selected to serve on the law review. I was also appointed to serve on the editorial board of the Georgetown Law Review. And I was recruited out of law school to work in private practice in Washington, D.C. And I served as a litigation lawyer at 2 top-tier firms in Washington, D.C., one of which is Latham & Watkins, which is a global law firm. And I gained a lot of incredible experience. I spent 13 years in D.C. and missing Massachusetts, and also was during the tail end of the Obama administration. I was very frustrated about what I saw, and so I made a very bold decision. My office overlooked, it was on 10th Street. I was near Lincoln's Theater. I was Ford's Theater, excuse me, where Lincoln was assassinated, and in the center of DC and on a very high trajectory. And when I went into my partner's office to tell him that I was resigning to move home to Massachusetts to run for Congress, he looked very surprised. His jaw sort of thing, and I said, "That's what I believe in, and that's what I'm doing." And so I ran for the United States Congress in the 9th Congressional District in 2000 for the 2014 election. And during the course of that race, I met my wife Lindsay. We were married last summer, and so I fell short in the congressional race, but it came up big in my life because Lindsay's my best friend and my life partner, and I'm so excited about that. We moved to Hingham recently. We moved to Hingham recently, so we're still. So I sort of returned home. She's from Canton, and we're South Shore. We're home. We're where we belong, and so that's sort of the background about me. I went a little lengthier because we've never met. Folks down in the Cape Cod area in South Shore are like, "Dan, stop, we know you, so you don't have to tell us all the story." But I wanted to give you about my background before I started to tell you about why I'm running for Attorney General. So I began to evaluate offices. I wanted to know, I founded a law firm what I do now. And we're growing, it's a startup law firm, and we're growing this firm. We have an office in Boston and DC. And I said to my wife, Lindsay, I said, I'd like to just evaluate what might be coming up. I'm a Republican, I'm a Reagan Republican, right down the fairway, lifelong Republican. Lived in DC and Massachusetts, the most liberal place on earth. I never have, that's always been who I am. And so I said to Lindsay, I said, I want to evaluate what offices there are in the event that I could contribute, in the event that I could possibly run for an office and succeed and get things back on the right track. So I looked at the number of different offices and evaluated, and then I said, well, what about the statewide offices? I knew there would be a scrum for Senate. I said, no, there's no way. When the Office of Attorney General came into my purview, I began to analyze the current Attorney General's record. This Attorney General, this is the first office that this Attorney General has held. And so there was a record created. WGBH tells me she's very popular and she's very successful. And I always push back on that premise because it's the first office she's ever held. She has a record, and that record is abysmal for the people of Massachusetts. It is absolutely absurd. I think that Massachusetts needs to know more about that record. This office, the Office of Attorney General, the reason why I'm running for the Office of Attorney General is because it has become too politicized. It has lost its legal compass. It has forgotten those that it is supposed to serve. If I'm elected, I will be the first Republican Attorney General in the Commonwealth for 50 years. Elliot Richardson was the last Republican Attorney General. I will be the first Republican Attorney General to hold the office in 50 years. Now, when I talk about the office becoming politicized, I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe in there's a role for government. There's certain offices that they have to function in a certain manner. When you look at the Office of Attorney General, not many people know much about that office. Let's talk about that for a second. That office, the leader of that office is the chief lawyer at this Commonwealth, and the responsibility of that office is to enforce the laws for the Commonwealth to protect the people of this state, of this Commonwealth. That is the role and purpose of the office. This office is being used as a political platform for an individual who seeks to advance her political opportunities. And it's totally off track. It's totally off track. And I believe, now as Republicans, we know there's challenges in this Commonwealth. I believe independents will understand that. What is our Attorney General? Let me ask you. What is our Attorney General doing, sitting before a federal judge in Texas, sitting as a defendant in a case, and being ordered to sit for deposition, and have a lawyer that's being paid for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts because she's acted outside the scope of her authority as an Attorney General. She sat there as an individual. She has politicized the office. She's going hard on Exxon. That was the Exxon case. She's going hard on Exxon, but she's going soft on drug traffickers. She believes that mandatory minimum sentences, that the threshold, the minimum threshold for drugs to invoke a mandatory minimum sentencing should be raised. So it's okay to deal a certain amount of drugs. It's okay to deal some drugs, but if just not too many drugs. She also believes that if the drug trafficker is sitting before a Superior Court judge, that the judge should give you a, quote, safety valve, should give that drug trafficker a safety valve. We are suffering from an epidemic that we've never seen. I mean, this opioid epidemic is beyond belief. The role of the Attorney General should be cracking down on drug traffickers, should be enforcing the law, should be doing the job to enforce the law. And that's what I will do as the next Attorney General. I will crack down on drug traffickers with the full force and weight of the law, because that is what the Attorney General is supposed to do. That's what the people of this Commonwealth deserve, and that's what I will deliver as the next AG. So there are a number of other criticisms. There are so many criticisms, and I think we all know, we all feel these criticisms. We all see these criticisms. We all see the flaws in the current Attorney. There is not a single public corruption. There has not been a single public corruption case brought by this Attorney General. Can you tell me?
It all went away.
Can you tell me that? Right. How clean and non-corrupt? I mean, seriously, is Massachusetts that non-corrupt? I mean, that's ridiculous. With respect to illegal immigration, let me ask you guys a question. If this is the Dubois case in Brockton, do you think that someone should be allowed, a public official or otherwise, to tip off people that are breaking the law, illegal immigrants, that there might be a grade? Do you think that's right? Do you think that's something that's right? Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right? It's out of bounds. So what did the sitting attorney general do in that circumstance? Did this attorney general stay silent? No, this attorney general spoke. This attorney general spoke, and this attorney general said that that representative has a First Amendment right to tell illegal immigrants that there's law enforcement coming. You know what that does? Now this is the standard bearer for law in our Commonwealth. This is the standard bearer. It put federal agents' lives at risk when she did that. When she said, she didn't go in and stay silent. She went in and said, she can say that. She can tell people who are breaking the law that the law enforcement is coming, and it's okay to put federal law enforcement officers' lives at risk. That's wrong. That's wrong. We need to have a standard bearer in that office that will enforce the law on all these number of issues. I've spoken to a number of you about the Second Amendment issue. We have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. This Attorney General brought it upon herself to say what the law is, to legislate. And she was rebuked. And she was rebuked not only by members of the Republican Party, but by high-ranking Democrats as well. So this is an opportunity. So I know I'm preaching to the choir. This is an opportunity. These items here is an opportunity. This vulnerability for this sitting Attorney General. Now, I've got another question for you guys. Are you tired of losing?
Yeah!
Seriously?
Yeah!
Are you tired of losing?
Yeah, really.
Seriously, are you? Because I'm tired of losing. We don't have to lose. The greatest strength of that party and the sitting Attorney General is our division. Is our division and our lack of unity. We can win this race. These issues, she's so far to the left. This Attorney General is so far to the left. She's in the category of Elizabeth Warren. The message, if we're able to get the message out, we can capture, obviously, the conservatives, Republicans, mainstream Republicans, Reagan Democrats, and maybe even a few independents, and maybe even a few Kennedy Democrats. That's what we need to do in order to win this race. This office is very important. I'm very proud to run for this office. I'm going to put my heart and soul in the race. I've already been doing that. I will continue to do that. I will fight for you guys, tooth and nail. What I need is your support. I really need your support. We need your support. So, we need it. I'm going to tell you, our campaign is run very efficiently. Every donation, $25, $50, $100, that absolutely, and you can ask Mike Pollock, our manager, absolutely makes a difference. Absolutely makes a difference. So I'm asking you if you would please provide financial support to our campaign. And also, or any other type of support in the North Shore here, we would be grateful. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'll stop there with my stump speech.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As I'm talking to anybody about you and that they should vote for you, can you give me something from your experience that I can use as a building block if I'm talking to somebody else?
You should vote for Dan because he's a born and raised blue collar guy from Massachusetts. He loves the people of Massachusetts. He's an experienced litigator. He's savvy. He's been in the courtroom. He understands the issues. I mean, those are.
Can you give me any litigation that I can say this is what he did?
Yeah, in terms of litigation, I mean, I'll tell you like a volunteer experience that I had may appeal to your folks or not, but I was an AmeriCorps volunteer. I served in inner city Boston. I helped implement computer technology into the Boston public schools to try to help underprivileged students, get an advantage over with their circumstances. And the cases that I handled are that I've handled are technology-based cases. They're intellectual property, technology-based cases. And frankly, I think that's a huge strength for me and my candidacy, because we have a very major, serious cyber issue that affects us all. I'm well positioned to address the cyber crime, both in terms of data that's, we have, our community in Boston, where we have some of the highest tech.
Peep on a Healy about
There's a lot of headlines and
cyber issues.
there's a lot of, this Attorney General has done a job in terms of setting out headlines and bringing commissions, but the actual results, it's very lacking. And so I bring that to the table with respect to the cybersecurity, and that isn't just individuals' information, that also affects human trafficking. I learned, Christina and I talked about earlier, that these people who are peddling children and women use the internet. They use this technology, and so I'm well positioned to understand those issues. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
You mentioned your experience as a litigation lawyer in IP, and this state is a hub for intellectual property and high tech. How would you use your experience to protect the companies and the scientists of the state, and to create better jobs so that their innovation ideas and intellectual property is not stolen by others?
Yeah, so I think one of the aspects of the attorney, it's with cyber and it's with other issues, one of the aspects of the Attorney General's office is it's a bully pulpit, right? And so, sure, there's a function, there's a $45 million budget, and there's a function of that office in terms of enforcing the law and et cetera, but it's also a bully pulpit that can be used to craft legislation and to push legislation, to introduce legislation. And so, with respect to, we have 21st century threats. We have 21st century threats with respect to cyber. We have 21st century threats with respect to opioids. We have 21st century threats with respect to human trafficking. And so, like all those aspects, that I'm well positioned to address that. Does that answer your question?
And what about us as the state of Massachusetts, with high-tech companies and with the best universities in the country, and all the professors and academics and scientists that create the value, and how would you use your experience to protect that value that is opening up jobs here and creating jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's like when you're talking from the purview of the Office of Attorney General, it's law enforcement. Okay, so what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, and that's that Governor Baker has done a tremendous job harnessing that in order to stimulate the economy and to build jobs and everything. But from the Attorney General's office, from the purview, I'll do my job. I mean, I'm looking at, are you breaking the law? Are you hacking into these? Are you hacking private users' information? Those are the types of things that, as the Attorney General, we would look at, and it's even a heightened, heightened scrutiny in this Commonwealth that has so many, so many different high-tech hubs, all this information.
when did she become AG?
In 2014, 2015 was the swearing in.
And could she have done something to have minimized this opioid crisis?
Absolutely, she could be much harsher. First of all,
could she have been?
Yes. Now here's the point of the politicization that kind of caps everything off. Is that for every suit? Now I think there's been 30, 25 or 30, maybe we'll correct me, lawsuits against the current administration. That requires a tremendous amount of resources in order to. Lawyers have to prepare the papers and etc. For every suit that's filed against the Trump administration, that's less resources that are directed towards enforcing the laws against drug traffickers. That's less resources to correcting fraud against seniors, to correcting fraud against or enforcing fraud against.
How many
the
suits
Commonwealth.
did she file against?
Almost 30. And it's like the last I checked.
In the past 2 years?
Since Trump has come into office. So within this
In 8
year.
months? 9
Yes.
30, so how many? That's how many a week?
It's a priorities question. It's a values question. Where are your?
What's one a week?
One a week.
So what I'm trying to say is, I'm a reformer. I'm here to reform that office. I'm going to take that off. My goal is to take that office from being politicized, from being used and abused for political purposes. I'm going to take that office, I'm going to bring it back to its purpose. I'm going to reform that office. You have my commitment. I will reform that office to operate as it should, to enforce the laws, to protect the people of Massachusetts. That's what I will do if I'm elected.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the last Republican in the Attorney General's office was Ed
Elliot Richardson.
Good one. I was young at the time.
That's all right. It's the same man.
But, you know, the Democrats fight for the top floor of 1 Ashburn a lot harder than even fight for the corner office.
Yeah.
How, besides the, you know, bringing up like the gun issue, what kind of strategy overall are you looking to try to, you know, is there any strategy you can share with us that you're, you know, going to use to try to, you know, get around that Democratic wall around that office?
Well, first of all, I love a good fight, and I'm not afraid. Okay, so I'm not nervous or afraid or anything. I feel like I'm an official lawyer right now. And I'm not afraid to fight, and I will fight. I need the support, but I will fight tooth and nail, 100%. The strategy is, there's a vulnerability there, and I know it may sound like rhetoric, but I believe that there's a vulnerability there. There's a vulnerability there. This AG has gone, they've had it for 50 years. Why stop? I mean, what's stopping you from the same behavior using politics in the office if the people haven't stopped you? Why not? It's just, hey, look, you got a $45 million budget, Maura Healy, this is your own promotion machine, and you can just go in. The voters aren't going to keep you in check. Maybe I'm an idealist, but the independents, the working people in this Commonwealth, if they catch wind of that, they understand it's an overreach, and even an overreach. I mean, there's a lot of overreach in Massachusetts, but it's so far to the left. It's Elizabeth Warren territory. If they learn that, that's the strategy. The confidence I have in the independents, in the common sense people in this Commonwealth, that's what the strategy is. But we can't get that message out unless we get the support.
Do you think you could calculate the amount of money she spent on the lawsuits against Trump and also the lawsuits with Exxon and the guns? Maybe the
answer is very simple. Yes, you could calculate it if this office was forthcoming with information. It's a black box. They have FOIA requests from almost everybody, and you can't get inside that building, which is very sad because it's a public. It should be public trust. It should be that information should be forthcoming, but you can't get to that. People have given FOIA requests, and the response is a black box. We can't give you the information because there's a pending investigation. And it's on a number of different issues.
Wouldn't that be something that you would bring out? Like the people of Massachusetts deserve to know. So she is hiding these facts because she's vulnerable.
Yes, that's absolutely. No, that's right. That's part of it.
She's overreached.
Yep.
She can decide whether we can have guns or not. She decides whether we can have information or not. I call her a little dictator.
Oh, I definitely agree with you, and I've heard worse than that so far.
I'd go after
So
her.
my thought is, in hearing you talk, you and I have talked a little bit on the phone as well, the gun grab thing was a huge impact on voters in Massachusetts because there's so many Massachusetts voters who own guns and they don't like the idea that attorney generals don't have them. There's a lot of pushback. In terms of your campaigning, it seems to me that gun owners would be a focus area for you because those are the folks that fiercely protect their right to the Second Amendment. So like gun clubs, Massachusetts versions of the NRA, those are audiences that I think would be very receptive to your messaging. I don't know if that's more for you or for Mike, but that might be something you guys want to look into because gun owners tend to vote Republican anyway, but they cross the board, they cross the spectrum. And And Maura Healy proved that last summer when not just Republicans came out of the but also Democrats. It's just an idea for you.
No, I appreciate that, and absolutely, I mean, we've got a nice dialogue going with those folks. In Worcester, and there are a number of people that are naturally coming to our campaign to say we need to make a change here because what's happening to us is basically tyranny.
Right.
And we listen to that. I listen to that very closely because that's not right. I mean, what happened with that guidance was a legislative act that was reviewed by leading Democrats, and she acted as a legislator, and just not. That's so fundamentally wrong, and that's what John Adams warned us about, frankly, and other founding fathers did. And so I think it's wrong. I think not only gun owners, but common sense people, if they understand that, then it adds to their vulnerabilities. But we definitely are contacting or in contact with the Second Amendment right advocates in this Commonwealth. We'll continue to do so. What's that? Goal, yeah, Goal, and Jim, yeah, sure.
There's a good one up in Gloucester.
Thank you. So, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all may have now or afterward. I also, if you really are a Patriots fan, I'd encourage you to watch the game. and I also, again, thank you for coming to hear me out. And if you want to visit and learn more about the campaign, the website is danshores.com. It's my name, danshores.com. And you can learn more about me and contribute to the campaign, volunteer for the campaign, and all that stuff. So thank you very much for coming tonight.